Good day to everybody out there. This is the Daily Awesome Podcast, a podcast on men's development, looking at what will make you excellent, awesome, have a great life in very realistic ways. I mean, what we're doing here is really sharing a message of what we do. In fact, these are all done off of live calls. This one's on Saturday morning. That's why I'm looking like this. I said to myself at the beginning of the year, I'm only going to look professional on my calls, but we do so, or on the podcast, but we do so many of them that, you know what? Today I just rolled out of bed and we started this call. It's great. We got 8 guys on. This is a TSL Online call where we talk about social dynamics, but we're talking about excellence. We're talking about this process that guys go through and where we need to get to, or that road and that journey, because we're sold it all the time. But there's a reality of it that isn't talked about a lot. And when you get to guys who are, at the top, and I hate using words like that because they get so exploited in marketing. But when you talk to guys who've achieved a level of life excellence in some area of their life, they're going to have a very different story than the people who are looking to get there. And oftentimes when you're looking to get there, you get sold on what gets there, or what you think is going to get you there, which is usually the opposite of your pain. So it's like if you're broke, money, or if you're lonely, it's going to be sex and women and power and all this sort of stuff. And that's not the real reality of it. So what we're kind of talking about here, and also follow the links down below, because for the month of April, we're giving away a PDF, which is a great PDF called The Way of the Sexual Man. It's 5 simple things that really have to do with your internal abilities to communicate and connect with people, to show your intent, to not be afraid of things, to know your dark side, and to be able to communicate that with people, because, hey, when it comes down to it, expression is the key. It's the shit. It's the thing that you want. So one of those things that we're talking about here is there's people who get a level of status given to them rather than work for it. So in our society, we see excellence, or we see where we want to be. We see our goals is usually a status point, whether that's a certain amount of money, or people respecting us, or maybe it's an award or a championship or a college that we graduated from. But we see that in so many different ways, especially in the dating industry, which is where I started with everything. We see that as a lot of women, or a lot of hot women, or a high status man, or a high value man. Those types of things are what we see as the holy grail. If it's in business, it means power. Or I remember I was in San Francisco, and this was, this was in the marina, so it's kind of, people talk this way in that area. And not all over San Francisco. If you go to Haight-Ashbury, a little bit different in the Mission District. But the guys were actually saying things like, you talk to them and they'd immediately say stuff like, oh, well, I have 70 employees, or, something along those lines that was just such a status figure that they were putting out there that demanded a sort of respect. So the thing is that we see that as our main goal. We see that as the light at the end of the tunnel in our self-development. But if you talk to anybody who's achieved success in any of those areas, a person who's achieved success can repeat it and do it in multiple areas of their life, especially if they start from scratch. So what that means is there's people that, let's say they're born into money, they can achieve excellence. They can do all this stuff. They have high status. They have all the benefits of having money, but they were born into it. And there's a big difference in the story of a guy who went from zero or didn't have anything and was able to generate that. Another thing is guys that are good with women. And this is one of the best examples that I have, because there's this illusion in the dating and seduction industry that you have to have all the status and money, but literally, and man, I've been in it a long time, from 2012 to 2016, I guess 2017, I've been the host of the 21 convention. I know every coach out there. I've met most of them personally. I know their personal lives, which is kind of disheartening in many ways. But what's more important than that is that literally the best guys that I know with women, that means that had the best sexual experiences, had the social lives that were really larger than life, had the the most women, the hottest women, whatever you want to call it, but all these things that are supposed to make a well-rounded sexual man in our society, or whatever it is, this pursuit that everybody's going for, they could all do that when they had nothing. In fact, a lot of them that were the best at it had no home. And that can be hard to believe. But these guys that were with models, that were with these, quote unquote, high value women that are only supposed to like high value men, would be having sex with these men so much to the point where they enjoyed the sex so much that they'd pay for their rent. They'd bail them out of jail. It was crazy. It was insane. And a lot of times when people hear these stories, they go, oh, but those were certain types of women. Maybe, but they're exactly the type of women that are targeted for the marketing in the dating industry. And so it was funny because then there would be these coaches that have the image and look of, all this great stuff, and they would have a sliver of those lives, if any. So it was always an interesting thing. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean you have to be homeless. It doesn't mean you have to be a dirtbag. It doesn't mean that you have to not have anything. But a man that is truly successful can find success out of nothing. And that road to success can be very long, and it should be long, or else that success is meaningless and worthless. That's another kind of concept to hit. And one other thing that's very important is that guys that learn to build up from zero in any area of their life, will be able to adapt it to another area. So let's say if you find that from zero to success in entrepreneurship, you should be able to then translate that to zero to success in your relationships, all right? Whether that's friendships or romantic relationships and so on, or your calming of the mind, finding those different things of peace and focus and purpose and all these other things that men love, or with your body, zero to excellence. In fact, when it comes to body and diet, it was interesting. I was talking to my friend who started to go, or about 3 years ago, went on a ketogenic diet, totally changed his life with it. And there's plenty of diets you can do, whatever. And people argue about that all day long. I just know there's tons of people that have found health in so many different forms of dieting. I don't want to argue it. They're all good. It's whatever you find, what works for you. In fact, the Fitness Institute in Texas, I was doing these DEXA scans, and this guy, I asked him, because a lot of the paleo community does DEXA scans there. And I said, well, what's the best diet? And he said, with all the research we've done, and all the stats on genetics, all the stats on the UT football team, all the different athletes that we consistently test and track, the best diet is the one that you can stick with. That's it. So I thought that was the great advice. So, because he built it up so much with all this research and the blood work and the genetics and so on. But the thing is that somebody what my friend was saying, who went on the ketogenic diet, is he said, man, I'm glad I got fat. I'm glad that my diet affected me in ways that harmed my health so immediate that I had to see. Because if you're one of those guys that has those good genes and you're always skinny no matter what you eat, or you're not showing signs of your health being affected, like you don't get heart problems or liver problems or intestinal problems immediately that you can't avoid, you just go through it. And then there's this other problem that builds in the background that you'll never see, that just is going to slam you at some point, when you're 50 or 60 and so on. And so I thought that was just like a great way to put it. There's something so special about working from the worst point or the 0 point and up the ladder. And I think anybody who's achieved real success is never afraid of working up that ladder. They know how hard it is, but it's a part of them that they know they can do, and they know that process. Whereas the other thing that tends to happen is what gets you success isn't the same thing that maintains success. And those people that work from zero understand that a lot better than the people that just kind of get it given to them. The guys that are born with the good genes, and the guys that are, and hey, if we're alive and we made it through evolution, we're born with some good genes. But you know what I'm saying? Some people that are born into wealth, some people that, perhaps they're doing a sport or a martial art and it comes to them easily, and they don't ever learn that discipline of working in those lower points. Man, you're the guy that is more deceived or blinded by those things that will have you lose it. When it comes to success, especially with financial success or with lifestyle success, what makes people lose it are always consistent things, man. It's that greed, the inability to manage, their wants and desires, their money. A lot of, for men, women problems. Man, I see this all the time. Guys that get good with building up a business and learning all of that, not knowing how to handle women or know women. And I see this big time, especially like we were talking about the online poker community. These guys had money, but they had no skill with women, but they got women. And they got everything they wanted with women. They got that success, but they didn't learn how to actually talk to women. They didn't learn how to go through the pain. They weren't willing to have breakups or to not have control at certain points. And man, as soon as those things happened, when they were deep in a relationship, that was a great way to lose everything. Their money, their sense of self, to be totally lost and broken and so on. And then also anger. If you don't know how to deal with that, I was talking with another coach about this online. We were messaging and he was just like, man, if you're not using your body, or if you're not channeling your aggression or those types of things, and you may not have much of it. But for me, there's a couple things that I know from using my body is that it calms me down. It puts me into the reality of the potential of my body. Like, I don't want to hurt anybody. I know what that means. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want any of those things. What I want is to be relaxed. But for me, fighting and training and fighting martial arts actually makes me know that. I don't want any of those things. Whereas if I'm not training a lot, I can start to think those things. I can start to think it's cool. I get in, online arguments with people, and it's stupid stuff that's not directed towards my purpose. And I will say there's a fine balance between using your physical activities like a drug, but you want to be able to manage those feelings within you. I think any man or any woman is going to come with a certain set of thoughts that get brought out of control with a lot of stagnancy or with a lot of repression or lack of experience. So that all being said, I think the importance of all of this is that when we're on our road to excellence, we need to welcome the 0 point. We need to welcome the bottom point. We all start there, and this isn't some motivational thing of like, oh, well, we all start at 0 in the first step. But that 0 is actually a great gift, because without it, you can't have a foundation of true excellence. You can get born into excellence. You can get excellence given to you. You can get excellence in all these different handouts. But to know the full dynamic and to know the whole story of it, you really need to know how to work for it, lose it, regain it back, build it up from 0, and know the full process of getting there. Because it's a much different conversation, and it's a great experience. I think the value of us looking at excellence or being at the top or status or whatever it is that we see and value in our own personal beliefs as well as in our communities, if we see that as something that we can get without work or the experience, we're really selling ourselves short. Remember, click the links down below, subscribe to the podcast, write reviews. The Daily Awesome is a newer podcast. We've had the TSL podcast, which is focused on dating and sex for years now, since 2012. Pretty cool. And so it has its following, but the Daily Awesome is here to put out the content that we talk about on our live calls. Of course, check out our membership. This isn't something for you guys to just, sit at home and listen to. I want to interact with you guys. We have an Austin Men's Development Board, which is free. And then we have paid groups that are really amazing, where you don't have those problems that come with free groups, which the AMD board, the Austin Men's Development Board, is great, but there's just so much more when we get into that connection with each other and have a real live men's group. So around the world, later from Austin, Texas. Hope you guys have a good day. It's Saturday for me, and we're going to have some good time today. We're going to go fly a kite with the kids and swim in Barton Springs. So I will talk to you guys later.